I found out that my girlfriend of 8 years was cheating on me with my best friend, Ethan, at his wedding. To make things worse, I discovered that all of our mutual friends knew about it and had been laughing behind my back. Instead of confronting them right away, I acted like I didn't know and waited to drop the truth at Ethan's wedding, not only to ruin his big day, but to expose him completely. For context, Ethan and I have been best friends since college. We were roommates and inseparable during those days. I was also part of a close group of 7 friends from my department, 4 women and 3 men. Over the years, we all stayed in touch. One of the women in this group, Nicole, has been my girlfriend for the past 8 years. Initially, Nicole was the one closer to this friend group, but after we started dating, I became part of it too. Ethan, being my best friend, also grew close to Nicole. Nicole and I started dating in our second year of college when I was 20. Over the years, we grew together, overcoming rough patches in our relationship. For the past year, I've been talking to her about marriage. However, she's been hesitant, saying she isn't ready. This puzzled me because we both have stable careers and have been living together for the past 4 years. I value my career, but I also want to start a family. Nicole and I have argued about this a lot lately. She thinks I'm rushing things, which doesn't make sense because we've been together for 8 years. She also claims I need to focus more on my career, which feels unreasonable since I already earn well and have been running my dad's company successfully for 2 years. I felt her reluctance to marry was more about her not wanting to commit than any of the excuses she gave me. Even though we've been fighting about this, I never suspected she was cheating because her behavior seemed normal sometimes. After an argument, either she would apologize or I would, and I believed we would always work things out and get back to normal. But now I don't think that's the case anymore. At Ethan's wedding, I realized that Nicole had probably been cheating on me for who knows how long. To make it worse, she was cheating with none other than my best friend, Ethan, the groom himself. I found out just a few days ago when I caught them making out in the parking lot, in my car of all places. Instead of confronting them on the spot, I decided to handle it differently and expose Ethan publicly. For context, Nicole and I had driven to the hotel a day before Ethan's wedding. That evening, we were supposed to attend the rehearsal dinner, but I was exhausted from the journey. On top of that, I get bad migraines, so I decided to skip the dinner. Later in the evening, my migraine got worse, and I realized I had forgotten my medication at home. I went to the parking lot to grab the car and head out to buy some. That's when I saw them, Nicole and Ethan, making out. I stood there, frozen, watching them for about 45 seconds. As soon as I realized what was happening in the car, I turned around and walked away, completely shocked and unsure of what to do. I don't think they saw me because they were too caught up in each other, so I got lucky. By then, the rehearsal dinner was already over, so I decided to go to one of my friends' rooms to talk about what I had just seen. I hoped they might comfort me and help me find the courage to confront Ethan and Nicole later. But when I got to my friend's room, I heard voices inside and realized that our whole group was already there. Coincidentally, they were talking about Nicole and Ethan. Not only were they talking, they were laughing behind my back about how clueless I was. It hit me that they all knew. They had known all along and had been covering for Nicole and Ethan. I overheard Kyle, the only other guy in the group, joking that they were bound to get caught eventually because of all the sneaking around, even during the wedding preparations. Apparently, they had even hooked up during Ethan's engagement party when I had left early. Everyone in the room found it funny, laughing and joking about it as if my feelings didn't matter. I was horrified at how casually they were discussing it. It was as though betraying me was just entertainment for them. I quietly walked away from the door, and luckily, they didn't notice me. They had probably had too much to drink. That day was easily one of the worst of my life. Even after all this, I went back to my room, feeling completely broken. I cried for about 15 minutes, but decided not to let anything show because I had already started planning my next move. I was determined to teach everyone involved a lesson they'd never forget. When Nicole finally came back to our room, I pretended everything was normal, and we went to sleep without saying a word. The next day, the wedding day, I acted completely normal. I greeted everyone as usual, and everything seemed fine. But just before the ceremony started, I stood up in front of all the guests and announced that I wanted to make a speech in honor of Ethan. This wasn't a typical part of the ceremony, so people looked a bit confused. Ethan, thinking I was about to give a heartfelt speech about how much I'd miss him, allowed it. That was a big mistake. I began talking about what I had seen the previous evening, how Nicole and Ethan had been together in the parking lot. And then I exposed everything I had overheard from our friends about their sneaking around, including the incident at the engagement party. At least some of them had the decency to look ashamed. But I didn't care about them. My focus was on Ethan and Nicole. As I continued, both of them realized what was happening. Nicole, sitting beside me, tried desperately to get me to stop. She kept tugging at me and telling me to sit down, as if that would fix things. Ethan, on the other hand, completely lost it. He started yelling and accusing me of being jealous of him, claiming I was trying to ruin his wedding because Nicole wouldn't agree to marry me. Ethan accused me of trying to ruin his wedding and steal his thunder, but he got so defensive that his fiancée actually believed what I was saying. She walked off the stage, leaving him standing there, stunned. When Ethan realized he'd been left at the altar, he ran after her, and the whole wedding turned into complete chaos. I didn't stick around to see what happened next. I shrugged Nicole off, left the ceremony, and headed straight to the parking lot, where I had already packed my bags before everything started. Then I drove home. It's been 3 days since the wedding. For the first 2 days, I didn't hear from anyone, but yesterday Nicole messaged me. She admitted that she and Ethan were wrong, but called my actions psychotic. Apparently, I didn't just ruin the wedding. I destroyed Ethan's life. His parents have disowned him, and his fiancée has already dumped him. Now he's broke and homeless because, as it turns out, he was counting on this wedding for financial support. To explain further, Ethan is a total gold digger. The wedding was a sham from the start. He and his fiancée hadn't met through their families earlier this year, as they told everyone, but had actually met on a dating app. His fiancée is 6 years older than him and had been given an ultimatum by her parents. Either settle down and get married or continue her wild lifestyle and risk being disinherited. With everything going to her sister, instead his fiancée was only willing to marry someone because her parents had pressured her with an ultimatum. She wasn't actually interested in getting married and had been searching for someone open to the idea of an open marriage, but she hadn't had any luck. That changed when she met Ethan on a dating app. Ethan quickly figured out how they could make this arrangement work for both of them. Ethan wasn't excited about marriage either, but he'd been unemployed for over a year, jumping from one short-term interest to another, never sticking with anything for more than a couple of months. His main goal was to marry someone rich and live off their wealth. Lucky for him, his fiancée's family was wealthy, so it seemed like the perfect opportunity. After a few dates, they realized this arrangement could solve both their problems. Everything was going fine until I exposed Ethan in my wedding speech. Their families had no idea about their personal arrangement, so when I revealed everything, his fiancée had no choice but to leave. Her parents would never approve of her marrying someone like Ethan, especially after their family had been humiliated in front of so many people. Even though their arrangement was convenient, it wasn't going to work anymore, so they called the whole thing off. Ethan had been living with his fiancée for the past few months and hadn't been doing anything productive. He'd even quit his last sales job. Now, after the fiasco at the wedding, his parents won't take him back, and he has nowhere to go. Finding a job isn't going to be easy for him, either, since he doesn't have any real qualifications. Even if Ethan manages to find a job, it'll likely be something low-paying. Now, Nicole is accusing me of being insensitive and ruining his life. She says I should have confronted them privately instead of humiliating them publicly and creating so much trouble for him. Even our friends have cut ties with both of them, and he's in a bad spot right now. For some reason, Nicole expects me to feel bad about all this. But honestly, I don't feel bad for Ethan at all. I don't think his life is ruined. He just needs to find a job, stick to it, and start taking responsibility instead of relying on other people. If anything, I might have done him a favor by forcing him to face reality. What I do feel a little bad about is the public humiliation and how it might have reflected on both families, especially Ethan's parents. They're really nice people, and my speech probably embarrassed them deeply. That's the only part of Nicole's argument that stuck with me. I feel like I could have avoided the drama by confronting them privately, breaking up with Nicole, and moving on in a healthier way. But instead, I created a public spectacle, and now it feels a little weird. So, am I the jerk for publicly humiliating my best friend and his family at his wedding because he and my girlfriend were hooking up? I don't know how long this has been going on. All I know is what I overheard from my friends joking about the situation. The only solid thing they mentioned was the engagement party. I left early that night because I had a migraine, which I often get in loud environments. I've never had a reason to be suspicious before. When I'd leave early, Nicole would always stay back with our friends, and I thought nothing of it. But now I'm starting to think this has been happening for a while, and I just had no idea. It's over now, though. If Nicole and Ethan want to keep hooking up, they can. Honestly, I don't think their relationship will last. Nicole isn't as rich as Ethan wants, and she'd expect him to work since she doesn't want to be the sole breadwinner. It's too much pressure for her words. I used to admire that quality about her, but I doubt Ethan will. Plus, Ethan is a bigger drama king than I ever was, and I don't think Nicole will tolerate it for long. It's been 2 days since I posted. I haven't replied to Nicole's message about Ethan, and I'm not sorry. I don't feel bad about anything because I was upset and reacted harshly. That's it. If others got hurt by my actions, that's not my problem. Yes, it must have hurt Ethan's parents, but honestly, I can't say I'm sorry about that. Even though they're good people, Ethan isn't, and he deserved what I did. I'm not in the mood to apologize to anyone, not even his parents. I did text Nicole back, but only to tell her she needs to come and collect her things. Now that we're no longer together, I don't want her staying in my house or her stuff lying around. I packed everything into boxes, set them aside, and told her to come and pick them up. Once she does, I'll block her too, just like I've already blocked Ethan and all of our mutual friends. Now that some time has passed, the emotions have really hit me. I wasn't just betrayed by one person. I was betrayed by my girlfriend, my best friend, and the entire friend group I considered family. It's been incredibly emotional, but thankfully, my real family has been supportive. They've been visiting me daily to take care of me and make sure I'm looking after myself. I'm truly grateful to have them in my corner. It's been 9 days since the incident. Nicole texted me this morning, saying she'd come by in the evening to get her things. I was fine with that. Since she hadn't tried to contact me in all this time, I assumed she'd just pick up her stuff and leave. When she arrived, I handed her the boxes, but she asked to look through the house in case I'd missed anything. I was skeptical because it sounded tedious, but I agreed. She found a few more things I'd overlooked, and I thought that was it. She'd take them, pack up, and leave. But instead, she lingered in the living room, holding the items, which made things awkward. I finally asked if she was planning to leave, and she said she wanted to talk. She hoped I'd be more open to addressing the situation now that enough time had passed. Her attitude infuriated me. She acted like years had gone by, but it hadn't even been 2 weeks. I didn't feel like I owed her any conversation. She cheated on me with my best friend who was about to get married. They were the problem, not me. I reminded her I had made it clear in my text. She was only welcome to collect her things, and now that she had done so, there was no reason for her to stay or talk to me. She started arguing, saying that while she cheated, I wasn't completely perfect either, and I needed to stop acting like everything was her fault. Until that point, I had kept my cool, even though I was growing more irritated by the second. But when she implied that her cheating was somehow my fault, I completely lost it. I started yelling at her because I couldn't believe she had the audacity to shift the blame onto me. I'm willing to admit I'm not perfect, but the way she said it made it clear she was trying to justify her actions by blaming me. That was the breaking point. I already knew what she was going to say. Like I mentioned earlier, we had been having problems because I wanted to settle down. I wanted to get married and start a family, but she wasn't ready for that. I figured she would bring that up since I'd been thinking about it too, though from a completely different perspective. In my mind, I was the one hurt in this situation, but in her opinion, she was a victim. She said she wasn't ready to commit because it was a big step, and she thought it would be a bad decision for her. She claimed she wanted to live her life a bit before settling down and starting a family. For the past 8 years, she's only ever been with me, and apparently, that made her feel like she didn't even know who she really was. Somehow, she thought that was my fault. I couldn't believe she thought these were valid arguments. If she had such a huge issue with committing to me after 8 years together, it was obvious we wanted very different things from life. The only way to handle that would have been to either talk about it and try to find common ground or just break up. But instead, she chose to cheat on me so she could have the best of both worlds, doing whatever she wanted while keeping me as a backup. And somehow, I was a bad guy for not being okay with that. Her playing the victim and acting like we were equally at fault made me so angry that I ended up yelling at her until I was hoarse. But even then, she kept arguing and defending herself. She claimed she had been under a lot of stress because of me and that Ethan understood her in a way I never did. I kept asking her to leave, but she wouldn't. She just stood there, saying I needed to understand that I wasn't a perfect person. I could have called the cops on her, but I was so upset at the time that it didn't even cross my mind. Eventually, I was so done with the conversation that I walked to the door, opened it, and just stood silently by while she kept trying to defend herself. It took her a few minutes to get the hint. It was hard not to say anything while she kept making silly excuses, but I stayed quiet and waited for her to leave. Finally, she left, but before going, she told me I could pretend to be perfect all I wanted, but deep down, we both knew it took 2 people to ruin the relationship. I agreed it did take 2 people, her and Ethan, but I didn't say that. I didn't want to start another argument, and I just didn't have the energy for it. Once she was gone, I shut the door and finally started to calm down. Talking to her had really gotten me worked up. Even when we were together, she had trouble admitting when she was wrong, and I used to think it was cute. But today, it just annoyed me. I was glad she left when she did because I might have ended up throwing something at her. Now that she's gone, I feel a huge sense of relief. I've already blocked her, and I'm focusing on myself more. I've started going to the gym more often. It helps keep me distracted, and I've also started journaling. It's baby steps, but it'll help me get over everything. After all, we had an 8-year relationship, and that's not easy to forget, no matter how it ended. All I can do is try not to let it bother me too much. It's been 2 years since my last update. I've been thinking about posting here for a while, and today I finally logged in. Here's an update on how everything is going. Work is going great, better than ever actually, and I'm really happy. I've also become really into fitness, and it feels great. I haven't had any contact with anyone from college in the past 2 years, and honestly, I don't care how they're doing. My family has been there for me the whole time, making sure I'm doing well. That's all I need now. I have very few friends, just a couple of people from school and some co-workers, but at least they are good people who truly care about me. For the past few weeks, I've also been seeing someone. Dating was completely off the table for me over the past year because I was still dealing with the trauma from my last relationship. But then one of my friends introduced me to her cousin at a birthday party. She's really sweet, really kind, and for some reason, I felt really drawn to her from the moment we met. My friend set us up on a date, and we've been seeing each other for a while. I told her everything about my past relationship, how long it lasted, and because of that, I want to take things slow before we get serious. She completely understands and respects my feelings. She's so sweet, and even told me she's willing to wait because she feels I'm the perfect guy for her. We're also on the same page about marriage and kids. She wants that just as much as I do. I think I've finally found someone who's right for me. I'm much happier now than Nicole and Ethan, who got married a couple of months after my last update. They couldn't even make their marriage last a year and ended up divorcing within that time. I heard about it from one of my old college acquaintances, who's a bit of a gossip. I can't say I feel bad for them, because that would be a lie, but I do hope this serves as a lesson to them and they don't hurt others the way they hurt me. Although, given who they are, they might. Anyway, I feel like I'm truly over everything that happened, and yeah, I'm happy.